Good. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for coming. I see some familiar faces, which is nice. The question, The question of this presentation is, can Bitcoin fix this? One of the poorest countries in the world, where the majority of people live on just $2.20 a day, which is the standard international poverty line, and about 85% of the population live with no access to electricity. So we are Bitcoin Bomber Foundation, and we're founded by myself, Nick Twyman here, and Greg Rombler, who's still in Malawi. You'll find Malawi here, if you're unfamiliar. We're one of a number of grassroots organizations in the Bitcoin ecosystem in Africa, and I would argue that Africa, perhaps other than Indonesia, of course, needs our Bitcoin more than most. This is the flag. This is the flag painted by one of my sons as well. So my name is Ian Foster. I've lived in Malawi for 10 years with my wife and kids. And I've seen how it's basically ground zero for the destructive nature of fiat currency. There's pretty much nowhere else I think you can go on Earth to see what a disaster fiat currency has been to humanity. The donors and NGOs come to the country and dump billions of dollars on the country to try to solve our problems. And all we see is things getting worse and worse and worse in terms of productivity, endless poverty and flash floods. We think Bitcoin fixes this. Let's see. Can Malawi follow El Salvador's example? Well, Malawi shares a number of similarities with El Salvador. In fact, it's a small agricultural nation, fairly densely populated, and the staple crop is maize, and also functions as part of the main diet. We also export and grow a lot of coffee, and it's actually pretty good too, much like El Salvador's. You won't find volcanoes in Malawi, but we have ancient plateau. This is Malanchi Massif in the south of the country, where you'll find flora and fauna that you can't find anywhere else on the planet. There's no surf in Malawi, but you'll find beautiful beaches on a pristine lake, which makes up about a third of the landmass of the country. This is the currency. We call it the Malawi kwacha. Kwacha means dawn in the local language, D-A-W-N. These are the notes that we have, or the ones that we can remember that we have. They're officially the 5,000, which is our most, is worth about half of the Indonesian biggest note. But on the real market, they call it the black market, you'll get $1.75 for 5,000 kwacha note. There's two other notes, a 50 and a 20. They're so worthless that the central bank had to remind us all with a circular just a few weeks ago that it's still legal tender. So what does this, are we in for a new dawn in Malawi? Dawn being the kwacha. Well, please let it not be this. So just like Indonesia, I feel like I'm just following on from your thing. The Central Bank of Malawi, the Reserve Bank of Malawi, is looking for a consultant to pioneer a central bank digital currency. Well, wouldn't that be marvelous? This is what the dawn really looks like. You can see that it's a very, very, very stable currency. It trades at about 1,751 kwacha to the dollar, and pretty much for the last year. And those of you with good eyesight might see this, and as Bitcoiners know, it always pays to zoom out. So here's the zoom out. This is the last few years. Malawi kwacha has lost about 60% of its purchasing power over this period, mostly when we're safely tucked up in bed. This is adopting Bitcoin last year, so just over a year ago, first night of adopting Bitcoin. The central bank decided to devalue the kwacha by 44% overnight. Much to the shock of the people I chatted to the day before, and much to the shock of my wife actually, who was sitting there, and she was in Malawi at the time. She bought a tin of varnish for 40,000 Malawi kwacha here, And it turned out not to be enough to do the job that she wanted to do, so she went to the shop the following day. They said, sorry, we're closed at the moment because we're updating all our prices. You can come back in a few hours' time. She came back in a few hours' time, and the same pot of varnish that had cost 40,000 kwacha the day before now cost 80,000 kwacha. And this was the same across the board. You may not think varnish is so essential across the board. This is electricity, petrol rather, 45% change overnight, diesel similar. This is electricity, 40.1% overnight. This is despite the fact that it's produced by hydroelectricity in the country. We don't import the electricity. In fact, an interesting thing about the electricity in Malawi is that you buy prepaid units. And the kwacha is such a bad store of value that you will buy tons of prepaid units as a savings because they never expire. Unlike the internet. I think we'll go. Yeah, is this the next one? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, eventually, so by overvaluing the kwacha, of course, we have, so I missed a bit, so I think there was another slide. Yeah, okay. So, on the slide about the currency, I was going to say that it's a closed currency system. We're also not allowed to use the US dollar. We can't accept the dollar. We also can't accept Bitcoin. So we're in kind of a different situation to El Salvador. And this artificial keeping the kwacha high makes the dollar, and restricting dollar makes it very scarce. So every now and again, we have chronic shortages in essential goods. So medicines, school supplies for kids, fertilizer for the farmers. Almost everything's imported in Malawi. And we have, this happens often, but we've been having fuel shortages for the last several weeks, where you have to queue for about 8 hours just to try to get some petrol. And the local energy regulatory authority restricts you to having 30 litres of fuel. So if you've got a long way to go, you've got to join 2 queues. These queues often lead to disappointment, by the way, and jerry cans have been banned. So in a country with frequent power outages, you can't top up your generator either. Even the petrol tankers aren't exempt, right? So, just like you said about Indonesia, it's not supposed to be a joke. People are suffering. This is actually a car belonging to a donor who prescribed us with these solutions. They're now queuing up for petrol as well. So the black market, of course, is blamed because they fixed the price of petrol at 2,500 kwacha, which is probably about $1.50 officially, for the last year. This is despite the fact that it's all imported and we've got dollar scarcity. So supply supplies have run out, and the black market is putting petrol into your car using an old cooking oil bottle, and it's currently going at 10,000 kwacha, so for a litre, 4 times the official or fixed rate. What else is going on? Also, occasionally we get dollars, right? And we get it from tobacco. So this is the tobacco auction floor. In the last April, when we had the last auction, the country brought in $400 million. It's a bit more than last year, but I don't need to tell you what the trajectory is for the price and demand for tobacco. So, every now and again, everything breaks. It basically essentially becomes a communist republic of Malawi where everything is centrally planned. Why? Because everything's imported and there's scarce dollars to go around. So the central bank decides who will be allocated the dollars. First petrol, and then whoever they deem to be a privacy industry. They've managed to attract investors, foreign investors into Malawi by saying that you can expatriate your profits, except you can't because there's no dollars to do it with. Just yesterday, the central bank rang all the commercial banks and told them that they want all the foreign currency denominated accounts parked with them. They want to spend the money that you have in US dollars, the little that you'll be able to have, like basically like FTX. If you're an individual, you also can't get dollars. So this is me and my family. We came here, we left Malawi 2 months ago for a 4-month trip. You have to have a proof that you're going somewhere, so a return air ticket, and you have to give the reason for your trip. We asked how much we're allowed to apply for, $3,000, and so we applied. What were we allocated? $1,500. This is a family of 5 traveling for 4 months, basically halfway around the world. We asked whether they could top up the extra in pounds or euros. The bank turned around and said we don't have any of those. So 1,500, that's it. Thank God for big. This is our president meeting. She introduced him as a great friend. I wonder why. So currently in the country there's half a month's import cover in dollars. So you saw what happened with this chart. I think you can probably guess what's coming. This was a couple of months ago, I think. He was greeted at the IMF headquarters. So let's see what happens next. Yes, this chart again. About here, the IMF approved a $185 million loan to Malawi. Congratulations for the devaluation. We can move on. So you might be wondering, like, how do businesses operate in an environment like this? How do people plan? How do people save and store value? Well, this is a typical scene from a village in rural Malawi, so we'll start here. This is where 85% of the people live. They mostly live with subsistence agriculture. They may sell some of their excess crop, and if they're lucky, they do ad hoc work for cash. So let's see what they do. There's no banks here, so you can't really have an account, and if you do, you'd have to travel to the city, and the banks charge a monthly ledger fee. They charge you fees on any transactions that you do online or whatever else, and the government slaps VAT on top of those fees. So most people don't have a bank account. If they did, then they'd get 4.27% on their savings. This is mandated by the central bank. This is a screenshot from the central bank on the 7th of November. This 4.3% joke has been going on for over a year now. And yeah, we can move to the next page, because on the next page we see the inflation rate, which you probably guessed is higher than 4.2%. Anyone can get 43.5, everybody, beautiful. That's on food, right? So that's what these people I'm talking about, that's what they care about. So why would you save, right? You can't. We have, the official rate is 34.3% when you take into account non-food items as well. This has been running for ages. And the cause, the official cause, is the Russia-Ukraine war. You can read the reports from the central bank if you they're still plugging that one. And climate change, that's the second cause. I'll just leave you with a thought. The increase in the money supply in Malawi over the last 12 months has been 49%. You figure it out, right? So another way that people get money is that their family, their extended family, they go and live in South Africa, they send remittances back, they go and live in the UK, do the same thing, America. I don't need to talk to you about the problems of the usual suspects, and I certainly don't need to offer a Bitcoin crowd a solution. But what you may be less familiar with is mobile money. And this is where you have people also rely on their wealthier or employed family in the cities who will send money back into these rural areas using these mobile phone networks. There's two, Airtel Money and TNM and Pamba, and you find them in these little huts almost everywhere. The more you cash out, the lower the fee, right? So this is in Malawi kwacha, 100,000 kwacha. Let's call it $50. But there's a catch. Most of these places don't have any money. They have really, really low liquidity. So if you were to send somebody 100,000 kwacha, they may have to go to 5, 6, 7 places, which takes time, it costs money on a bicycle taxi or whatever, and they end up cashing out at 6 to 4%. in the same currency, in the same country. So your 100,000 kwacha quickly becomes a lot less. And these people are living hand to mouth, right? I wonder what the solution could be. It's kind of... So, how do these people store value? There's an answer, and it's not a nice one. It shows the destructive power of fiat money. Those who've spoken to me already know what the punchline is going to be. Goats and cattle. If you're a bit better off, you'll have some cattle. These are actually cattle walking along Lake Malawi. Very nice scene. Goats are the primary one. There's about 12 million goats in Malawi. The total population of Malawi is the magic 21 million, which is one of the reasons why I think we're so ripe for Bitcoin adoption. But the 12 million goats represents basically 1 per adult of the population. They are everywhere. And they're mostly corralled during the rainy season, which is when people plant maize. So we're talking from December through to April. They're all corralled, so they can't go anywhere. Why? Because everybody understands that goats eat everything and destroy everything they touch. And maize is like life and death, so we can't possibly afford that. Maize is cooked using lots of energy. It's mostly cooked using charcoal because in the rural areas there's no alternative, unlike here where you find gas everywhere. So you get ladies going to collect sticks and wood, whatever they can find, in a land that's been pretty much deforested entirely. And in April, when they've harvested all the maize, all the goats are let out and they go all over the country and they eat everything. And so every single tree, sapling that tried to come up, every single plant disappears. We have some land on Lake Malawi which we tried to plant some trees on, we couldn't do anything. We fenced it. Suddenly, there's this oasis in the middle of nowhere. We can't stop the trees growing, they're coming up, that looks like a forest. You look over the fence, it's a desert everywhere you look. But every now and again, these donors that I was talking about, the NGOs, they come in, they plant trees, it's a wonderful photo opportunity. She's looking very happy with herself. The other thing that they do is they go, ooh, how can these people in these rural areas, how can they improve their incomes? And they go, ooh, goats, that's a good income generator. So we have them promoting goats now, even though there's already more than 1 per adult and they're destroying everything. But they're not stupid, right? Michael Saylor's famous for saying there's no second best. There is a second best. In Malawi, it's goats. This is the price of a goat a few years ago in Malawi kwacha, 15,000. A few years ago, Bitcoin bottomed at 16,000. Had it not been for the Trump pump, this would have been about the price of Bitcoin, 60,000. And now it's 60,000 on the goat in Malawi kwacha. It is a brilliant store of value. There is a second best. And they destroy every bit of value in the country. Yes. There's another way of storing value. If you've got a bit more, you go up the social hierarchy a little bit, you start to build houses. You can't get a mortgage in Malawi, nor should you save up to build a house and buy or do a contractor, because by the time you've saved up, you'll still not be able to afford it. You go on and on and on. So people build slowly, which creates a massive demand for bricks, which are burnt using, again, deforested trees. You also have a massive demand for river sand. So what happens to the rivers? The beds disappear, and there's nothing left. And this is then what happens. The store of value destroys everything. Now we have a rainy season every single year. We have cyclones every single year, but suddenly the cyclones are washing away whole villages because there's no topsoil, there's no riverbeds, there's no nothing to hold anything together. Agricultural productivity goes down, and the government says, oh, we need dollars. You can get dollars for climate change. So there's no reason to think about what the root cause of this is. The root cause of this is fiat money, but nobody can see it because you can just go cap in hand back to the IMF and say, give us some more money. It's climate change. Anyway, that was a bleak picture, but we're Bitcoin Bomber. And Nick is going to tell you how we can solve this.
Thank you, Ian. That's a tough task, and I'll see what I can do. Yeah. So, ever since 2022, I realized the same things that Ian has discovered in his 10 years being in Malawi. I've been in Malawi for about 7 years. And in 2022, I decided that I'm just going to focus on bringing Bitcoin to Malawi and devote my time to doing that. So I came across a very interesting individual on Twitter called KG, who created a Lightning wallet called Machankura. Who here has heard of Machankura? Amazing. Yeah, so it's essentially is a custodial Bitcoin Lightning wallet, which allows users to send and receive sats. Amazingly, it allows locals to convert their sats into airtime, which is close enough to converting it into a local currency, but not quite. Worked on that for quite a while. Did some initiatives running circular economies and had some success, but ultimately realized that there needed to be more Bitcoin in the country to support circular economies. Here's some videos. I don't think we're going to be able to see them, but I showcase some Malawians discovering that they can use sats for real-world value. So Malawi has one exchange called Yellow Card, in which you can buy and sell Bitcoin. Due to the currency risk that Ian highlighted, it's very, you have to pay a really high premium in order to get Bitcoin. And also, the company doesn't want to hold on to the clutches. So anytime somebody wants to buy Bitcoin in Malawi, they have to have Quacha buyers in line already found in order to justify the sale of the Bitcoin or the USDT they're also selling. Crashing the wall, that play. This is a recent meeting with the Yellow Card country director and COO with our co-founder, Graham Norwood, and we're hoping to do some more education initiatives with them soon. So, at the same time that I was interested in the payment space, I also became thinking about energy in Malawi and how we might get attention to use Bitcoin mining to bring Bitcoin into the country. An interesting statistic is that the average American uses in 3 days the amount of power that the average Malawian uses in 1 year. So it's a very dramatic discrepancy. So this here is one of the hydroelectric dams in Malawi, which in Malawi, there's about 500 megawatts of production for the entire country, and surprisingly not all of it is used. All grids are inefficient, and so some of the, even at night, there's not enough demand to justify the, Sorry?
It's around Malawi as well?
Yeah. There's actually, the water levels in the lake are so high, there's too much water. But if the government decided that they wanted to mine Bitcoin, they could easily do it. There's a significant amount of stranded power. So what Bitcoin mining could allow the government of Malawi to do is to monetize the stranded power. We all know that as Bitcoiners. This would bring in another form of foreign exchange. Of course, it would be going into the government's hands, and it's no telling how they would use it. If it would actually benefit Malawians, that's another question. But yeah. Earlier this year, I went to the government hosted an energy conference, and one of the key takeaways that energy in Malawi needed to develop through mini grid development. And Bitcoin mining goes hand in hand with mini grid development in my mind, because it offers a flexible power consumer and can be located anywhere. So I've been talking with the Minister of Energy, as well as some of the high-ups in the government power company, and they're open to it. Just the bureaucratic mess is holding it back at this point, as far as I can tell. Which leads me to what I think is the true solution to bringing Bitcoin into Malawi and actually helping to develop energy availability. It's the gridless model, which I'm sure many of you know. I've spent the past year looking for potential development sites. So we've been chasing waterfalls, trying to see what we can do. And this happens to be one of the sites that we've found. This site is interesting because it's in the government's back pocket. They know about it, but they tried to develop it in 2019. They failed. Their partners backed out, and they don't have the funds to do so. And so this could be a 1 to 2 megawatt site in a rural area to support the local community, and development is probably going to take place next year. If it doesn't load, then just skip. Yeah. So this site is actually a buddy of mine. So he's a local who he actually manufactures his own turbines, and so he built these hydroelectric schemes all by himself. He funded it through grant money, and he's not actually running these right now because he doesn't have anyone to sell. There's no demand in the local community. It's a very rural area. And so his idea was to build a maize mill, but then there's already maize mills in the area that we would have to compete with. So I told him, well, why don't we just mine Bitcoin? So that's the plan. I'm going to start doing that this coming year. And then this is another site, another rural area. This is a hydroelectric site that was developed in the 1980s. It was decommissioned in 2008 because some parts they're too old, and fixable solutions just don't have the funding to do it. It's owned by a church that has no money. So I've come to them and said that I'll take over if you want to let me rent the space, and I'll mine Bitcoin, get it going again, and we'll support the local community as well. This is just the interior of the powerhouse. And as Ian mentioned, we founded an education organization called Bitcoin Roma. In Malawi, there's a lot of fear of scams, particularly in the Bitcoin space. So we like to it's our mission to bring truth and create a social layer of trust and good information, availability of peer-to-peer trading networks, WhatsApp groups. We've also interacted with NGOs and the government, so we're trying to fulfill as many people as possible, but we're located in Malawi, and for now our hub is located at M-Hub, which is a tech innovation center in the country, in Malawi. And this is us in front of our innovation center, and yeah. So thank you very much for being here, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Yeah. Maybe you want to answer that?
How can we be supported? Well, right now, we need to do a bit more strategy, which we think we have to put something like easy support. We've been partnering with some organisations, so this is actually one that just our family and the other this is here. We're trying to use it to use I'm working with some of the centres to go we've got something like this. Yeah, I mean, the best way I suppose is probably one of those centres and spreading the story of Malawi. I've spoken to speakers, they're not interested in presentation. There's so many there's only some differences, there's parallels in the music. It's basically a legal to pick points. I like the beam, I need to think through the I like solutions.
Well, thank you guys.